for most of you, it's the end of your day.
I believe.
So hopefully this will be a good ending to your day. I wanted to let everyone know before we get started that the session is being recorded. That way we can provide it to members who weren't able to be online with us today. So today we have with us Charles Parker, and he's going to be talking about the NWCOPRO business management software. So Charles, if you're ready, I'll go ahead and switch the screen over to you.
So is he still on?
I think he is.
Because it keeps saying on the top that he's left, so I don't know if he's...
Well, I have two different entries for him, and they're there. So, okay, so it says it's waiting to view Charles' screen, and that should be it then. Okay, Charles, so if you'd like to go ahead and take it over.
Can you hear me?
Now we can, yep.
Yeah, for some reason I keep muting. Not sure exactly why. So hopefully this will last longer than the last few minutes. So how many people are here? 9?
Yes.
Oh.
And there's several others, about 9 others that signed up for it, so then maybe they'll join us yet.
Right. Okay, so what NWCOPRO is, it stands for Nuisance Wildlife Control Operator Professional, and it's a software that I made myself to help run my business. And obviously it's in beta mode.
You still with us, Charles? I'm sorry for this technical difficulty. Let's see if we can get Charles back on with us.
Hello?
Are you back?
Yeah, like I said, I'm connected through my phone, but it keeps disconnecting.
Are you using a cell phone?
Yeah.
That might be why. You don't have a landline, do you, that you can use?
Yeah, I do. Why don't I call into that?
Okay.
Hold on.
And so while you're gone, we'll just talk about you.
Okay, I appreciate that.
Well, thanks everyone for your patience. We're going to try to get this technical issue dealt with quickly.
Can anybody hear me?
Yes.
All right. Well, this is Jack Ammerman. I'm on the road right now, so I just want to make sure. I didn't know if my mic was live or not.
Yeah, it sounds you have good, clear feed.
Better than Charles?
Yeah.
Okay. Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can.
All right. I do hear some feedback. In other words, I hear my own voice.
I'm going to mute everyone except for you, Charles, and that should help cut down on the feedback.
That'd be awesome. Okay, so let me start back over. NWCOPRO is find me to help me run my business, and I use it every day. And I've been using it for about maybe a year. It is in beta mode. So what that really means is that the people that are here right now.
Charles, I'm sorry, we're having a hard time hearing you.
No.
let's go back to using your microphone with your computer.
Okay. That's still there. Hold on.
Okay. I think you can just unmute it.
Horrible.
Yeah, this is about the 7th webinar we've done, and we've never had this much difficulty with the audio, so I apologize. And thank you for your patience.
Okay, is this a little better?
It is.
Well, we'll see how long this lasts. Maybe it's something to do with my
No, it's still happening.
Yeah, I'm getting a lot of feedback. Hold on one moment.
Well, let's see. Are you connected on a phone still, too?
Yeah, I'm disconnecting that now.
Yeah, hang up that one.
Maybe the other microphone's picking up twice.
I think that's what it was.
Is that clear enough?
Yes.
Oh, my goodness. This is...
And so then if everyone else can mute yourself, and if you have questions, you can type them into the chat window. And I'm going to mute myself too, Charles, so that it's just you that has the ability to speak. And
yeah, I've got the chat open. I don't have the feedback now, so...
Okay, go ahead.
So I guess let me start over again. If you can't hear me, type it into the box at the bottom. And like they said, we've been doing these webinars. Before the girls were doing the webinars, I hosted all of the meetings for the NWCOPRO board, and I've never had this problem. So hopefully this will just be a short bug. So again, the NWCOPRO software, I made it for myself to help me run my business. And I'm going to go first to the regular WW site. So if anybody wanted to find out more about this, this is where you would go to do that. I've just created a directory here too. It's free for anybody that wants to be listed, as long as there's no one already listed there. People that are members of the NWCOPRO software will get first listing. But this is just a little side note. It has nothing really to do with the actual use of the software. What I originally built this for was to be able to track my phone calls, to be able to track my customers, and be able to access that information out in the field. And I originally started by using QuickBooks, but it was a little bit overkill. So, and plus there was no way for me to access the information out in the field. Now, when somebody would call, I'd remember their name, but maybe not how much I had charged them the last time. Or, another hurdle that I've had is losing equipment. So I wanted something that would handle all of that. And when I started looking around, I realized that there wasn't anything out there for nuisance wildlife control. So it's a lot of the people that use things like this now in the pest control industry, those programs are well developed and they're more tailored for that industry. I just didn't see anything that fit what I wanted. So I set out a couple years ago to start building this, and so this is what I came up with. When you first go to set up an account, you go to member login here, this is where the sign up actually begins at this link right here. And I'm just going to walk through it real quick, and then I'm going to give everybody some a username and password so that they can maybe log in and follow along, or they can just watch what's going on the screen. So to register for an account, you would just simply fill out all of these fields. There's a term here for a redfish. Select the term redfish from the following choices. When I first did this is a little comedic side note. I didn't realize that there were people that did not know what a redfish was. But, so I had to actually write the term redfish instead of real fish. And then all of these are just simply for a bot check so that I don't have people signing up their computers and things like that. The other thing that would be super important to remember is that you would want to copy this code before you move on to the next step, and you would enter it. Once you go through the sign-up process, the very first thing that you're going to see is that you are a new user. Once you log out and log back in, that kind of confirms that you've signed up and completes the process. And so you would come here with you go back to this site. You could go back to the www and hit remember log in, or come straight to the HTTPS. This is a secure server, so that all the information, the traffic that you are entering is all on a secure server. Now you're not going to be entering in people's credit cards or anything like that, but regardless, you still want to have this information encrypted as it goes back and forth. So in logging in, I've created a kind of a dummy account called owner@owner.com. That's not really a real email address, and the password is QAZWSX. And I'll type that into the chat down at the bottom, QAZWSX. It's very simple, and you could log in at any time and fool around with this if you wanted to. But just following along on the screen would probably be easier at this point. So the first thing that happens, you see the screen, and what this is doing at this point is checking to see whether or not you're a member and what your membership status is, because there's several logins. You can have a customer login, you can have a secretary login, you can have technician logins. So there's two choices here. One would be to launch the desktop version, or one would be to launch a technician app. The technician app is really a scaled down version of the whole thing that kind of limits what a technician can see. It also makes it much easier on a cell phone to use, although I use the desktop version all the time on my cell phone. You have to remember that this is not an application like an app that you would download at the App Store. This is a website. So no matter what type of device that you have, it could be a laptop, it could be a Kindle Fire, it could be your TV if you've got internet access. With anything that has internet, you should be able to, you can go to any other website, you can go to this one. So we're going to start off with the desktop version, which this is the first loading screen that you're going to see. And then just this morning, I added this little feedback page to load first. It's normally all the way down here at the bottom for feedback, where I was putting in some updates or allowing people to put feedback. But normally this is what you're going to see right here. Normally it's just going to load up to have this a little splash page, and you would have these buttons on the left side. And the buttons on the left side start off with the phone log. The phone log would be to record your phone calls. So this is a dummy account, and I had the girl that works for me put a few imaginary phone calls in there. And there are some real addresses of jobs, so that we can kind of see how it would work in real life here. But when you first sign up, what you're going to want to do with an empty account, you're not going to have all of this. It's going to be blank. So the same thing with some of the other things in here, as far as your customers, calendar, jobs list, filling those out. The idea here is that when you type something in, like an address, you don't want to have to type it over and over. So as you get into this more and more, you'll start seeing how one thing affects the other. But as I was saying a moment ago, when you first log in the first few times, you're going to want to spend a little time on this reference library right here. And so we'll start there. In the reference library, you have different things. You have vendors, species, equipment types, cost library, trap status, call status, actions, address book, customer types, leads, and referrals. Now, being that this is in beta, there's some things that are not quite developed yet, but there's a lot that is. To start off with, this would be vendors. So vendors are suppliers that you're going to be using throughout the rest of the app. If you have equipment that you might buy from Home Depot, or equipment that you might buy from control supplies. You want to be able to track that equipment later on. Have people that are putting traps in attics, you want to know where are those traps later on, and where did I get them from, and how could I buy another one very easily. So your first vendor is yourself, because you're going to already have some equipment and things that you really can't classify especially in wildlife control, there's things that we make sometimes, things that we invent that we may want to keep track of. So, you know, it's good to list those just strictly as your own thing. I'm going to do a pretty fixed example of this here. Wildlife control supplies is one of the suppliers that we use all the time. There's a drop down here where there's things that are already filled in. As a new user, these are all going to be available to you. So let's just say that I want to add another vendor. There's some that are already in here because, again, the whole idea of this is, you know, save time typing. So if you pick Tomahawk, all of their information is filled in already. All you have to do is hit save. Some guys, and what I learned very quickly in building this is that not everybody runs their business the same. So the things that I thought I needed, I had no idea that other people needed other things. And that's why I decided to release this as a beta a few months ago, because I quickly realized that I needed the input from other people. You know, even though I've been doing this for almost 15 years, the way I run my business is not the same as the way the guy might run his business in Canada, like Darcy Alperton, or Jack Ammerman in the north, in Ohio. So, you know, this is, you'll see later on how this becomes important. So that's one, is your vendors. Species would be the next thing. So not everybody handles the same type of animals. But again, once you have these things, you'll be able to select them later on in setting up phone calls or jobs. So in this case, you have mouse, rat, and squirrels. I'm just going to add another one just to show you that how this works out. If you were to pick a bat, every type, what I've done is I've cataloged pretty much every type of bat that there is. And we've got it in here, so you could keep track of, let's say, what type of bats that you're seeing in your area. In my case, it'd be the Mexican free-tailed bat. So I would, let's see, free, yeah, so. You see how that filtered out by typing in the FR. I select that, it fills out everything, I hit save. So now that would be one of the species that I have in my species library. Pretty much every animal is in here already for you, you just have to select it. It'll put a cool little icon there too, and that'll be useful later on in maps. Going on to the equipment. So here's some different, you know, the way that you want to track your traps. The most important part here is in the beginning of setting this up and making it more useful to yourself is numbering your traps. Putting tags on them with serial numbers if you can is best. Starting off, I just started writing on them with a magic marker, you know, marks a lot, just to get that number into the system. So these are obviously made up. The way that I decided to number some of my traps is like this. It's a wildlife control supplies trap. I just use WCS. So I'm going to go ahead and quickly just create a new record. Again, there are vendors where you're selecting your equipment from. So if you pick, these are from your vendors. So if there's Tomahawk, there's Tomahawk traps. Now right now, I only have the one trap loaded in here into the base library. I've already spoken to Tomahawk traps and wildlife control supplies, and what these guys are going to do is they're going to dump their entire catalogs into NWCOPRO. I just haven't given them the opportunity to do that yet, but they are ready to do it. They've both committed to it. So basically, you'll be able to select any type of trap that they have in their catalogs and select it. And then when it selects it, you put in your own serial number, whatever you would want, and hit save. So now you can track that trap later on in the app. And equipment types is something you may want to fill out first before you start selecting equipment. There's a bunch of different types in there already for you to choose. Again, not everybody runs the same type of business, and they're not going to have the same type of things. Some people, all they do is bats. Some people, all they do is exclusion work. They don't have conifers, that kind of thing. So I want to give people the ability to customize this for whatever type of business they're running. So in this case, we'll just pick something conifer. Type. And again, like I said, when you're first setting up, put in a few things, and later on, as you're using this, you'll start seeing how your selections are filling out later on in the application to help you do less typing in the future. The longer you use it, kind of the smarter it gets. So let's see, cost library. The cost library is a very, it's a lot different, it's a lot different type of cost library than what you're going to be used to seeing in QuickBooks. I think what I should do first is show you a little bit about the address book first and how that applies to this. Because a lot of times, guys, when they're doing this type of work, they charge more for a service that is farther away or more difficult to get to. Certain zip codes might cost you more money to go to because of a river, because of a mountain, because of a bridge, anything like that. So what we want to do is set up in your address book the cities and states that you would work with on a regular basis. And again, once you select these things, so like in my case, I'm in Louisiana, so I'd select LA. Now what this is going to do is it's going to filter all the cities to Louisiana. So again, we don't want to have to spend our time typing, so we're just going to pick another one here. Now if I was going out to Alexandria, the cost for that would be much higher than it would be around here. I'd probably want about 3.5 times what I would normally charge. So in my cost multiplier, I would put 3.5, and I'm going to hit save. Now that's going to come in handy later when I'm setting up my cost library. And you can always go back and adjust these later on to your suiting. So I have general trapping here, which is 385. Now, I could just as easily go in here and change this cost multiplier, or I could just set up a new record for general trapping. And let's say item type wildlife control. General trapping. Notice I'm just typing in a word and it filters it by that. If it's in there, it'll pick it up. So general trapping will be 385. Now if I put in a zip code from Alexandria, which if you notice, these 3 zip codes are from my company address book, and it's already going to set up that thing. So that's going to change my price out there. If I wanted to go out there to do the same trapping, that would be my cost. I'm going to hit save on that. So again, that's showing that in my cost library, that's a zip code for that same item. So that's how this thing is flexible. When you go to put bids together later on, you'll notice in that cost library, there's a ton of things in here in wildlife control. Anything from the normal trapping to attic restoration. I've tried to put a lot of things in here that I know that people are already doing for equipment rental, for air scrubbers, shingle repairs, carpet protection, caulking and sealing. That's for linear footage of doing that, minimum cleaning charges, mold and zoonotic contamination. And again, you're free to make up your own. And these prices are not, these were average prices that I was able to come up with based on people that I've talked to around the country and my own research, and in comparing them to national standards that I've been able to locate. So again, you can, I guess I should explain this too, so now's a good time. If you notice when I tried to close that record, it said I must cancel or save. Down here there's if you mouse over it, it'll give you a little tooltip. It says cancel, enter new record. Cancel edits to this record, which is what I want to do. Just hit close. So move on then. Out of cost library, and you have trap statuses, which this is baited and reset. There's a whole bunch of statuses that you can have. Again, not everybody runs their business the same way, so you may want to select your own. I'm just going to put another one in there, just going through this. Again, this is not real important right now, but later on in the app, as you're entering phone calls and customers and tracking jobs, these are point-and-click items that you're going to be able to add without having to type. Again, when you're getting into the mobile industry, where you're out in the field, you do not want to spend time trying to type little bitty letters into a phone or even on a tablet. call status is along the same lines. N1 trap. We'll just go ahead and just add another one. Again, you can add your own, but there's already a ton of them in here for you. You may just decide that you don't like what I've got in here, and you can write your own. So let's see. We'll put waiting on our arrival in there. That's one I like to see. That means I've got a job coming up. Call status. And then actions. This here is particular to Louisiana, and I've also found that there's a couple other states that require reporting on what you did with the animals. And so this has the ability to add those in. I've already got a bunch of things set up for you and some abbreviations as to what you may have done with the record. With the animal. Trap, shoot, relocate, lethal trap, trap and euthanize, exclusion, habitat modification, other, or DOA. So we'll go ahead and just put trap and euthanize to add a new record in there. And then, of course, I already went over the address book. But again, this is also good because a lot of times what I've noticed that people do while they're using this app is they start typing in, but they spell the cities wrong. And data entry, you really can't control, especially if you've got somebody working for you, what they're going to type in. They may spell this with an N. And if you're looking for all your jobs in Metairie, and now you have one in Metairie, that's not going to work. That particular search is not going to show up. So by filling these in and sticking with this, what happens is you have better records and able to sort them out later on. So the address book is really important. Customer types. I put this in here, and it is not really being used yet, but there are, I put basically every industry in here. I really, like I said, this is new. I didn't want to leave anything out, but right now these customer types are not really being used. But I'll go ahead and put them in there. Leads and referrals. This is another thing that is in here. I personally don't use it, but somebody asked me to put it in there for them, so I did. This little call button, if you decide to put in your friend in here, Bob, and you put in his phone number, as you type, it automatically formats it. If you're on a mobile device and you click that, it'll pull it up on your phone and you'll be able to call that person. I'm going to undo the records, the edits to that record. You don't necessarily need this at this point, at least for my business, but it's there if someone else wants it. Same thing with relationships. I really don't use it there. I've got drop downs elsewhere where you've got husband, wife, daughter. I mean, if you have contacts on a job, you may want to put somebody down as a tenant. That it's kind of hit or miss as to whether or not you'll actually use this, but it's anyway. So then that's the reference library. That's probably the first thing that when you set up your account in the very beginning that you want to go over. And then next we're going to go into why all that is important. Starting with the phone call. Phone call is kind of the key to this whole business. If you don't have phone, if your phone's not ringing, you're out of business. It's kind of the way it goes. I'm sure everybody here can appreciate that. So when you first get a phone call, you hit new record and you put that in there. Now, I recommend to people that they don't record every single phone call just because you'd go crazy doing it. But for the most part, you want to record them. You'd be surprised at how often you'll look back on this information. There's some defaults that pop up. First of all, the time of day when you call, it's set to now. This is my local time. If you pull this up in your computer in front of you, you're going to have your local time. And the date is a date picker. Very simple to do. You can always pick today. If you wrote the calls down in your notebook throughout the day and you want to put them in that night, this you'll be able to easily add it. Put in different days, whatever you need to do, or to change the times. There's a little time picker for that. AM and PM, and you can select really easily what it is. Now, The interesting thing about this phone call part is when you receive calls, a lot of times people call from a different number than they want you to call them back on. And then they don't answer that call. And so now you have two numbers to keep track of. This allows you to do that. And it also, because we're dealing with a database, we're able to filter back through all your previous phone calls. Now, in the beginning, this isn't going to be very helpful. But 2-3 years down the road, when you've got somebody calling you again, it's going to become very useful. Because as you'll see, when I start to type in the area code, the numbers start filtering. So these are all of my previous calls that are coming up here. So if I were to put in a 4 next, you'd see it filtered it right down to the next one. If I put in a 7 next, it's going to filter to the next one. If that person is calling again, if I suddenly realize that's the same person, all I have to do is select that, and it's going to fill in all of their information. And again, the whole point of this is so that you don't have to type over and over. New calls, obviously you have to type them, but if somebody's called before, there should be no reason. This right here, male and female, that's purely up to you. Some people like to keep track of that type of thing for advertising in the future. For television advertising, radio, you might want to know what their market is. You want to know what you're looking to market to. So you may be surprised to find that most of your callers are female. Now you may not be. So then next would be the job information. This allows you to assign it to an employee. If you notice, if you see this little bitty dot right there, that's because I don't have any employees listed on here, for this company right now. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to stop the edits to this and close it. And we're going to go back down to employees. And we're going to add an employee. And again, as you start working with this, there's going to be a lot of things that you're going to have to fill in. But as you use it more and more, it will become less and less and more just point and click. So we're going to hit a new record on this. I'm going to go ahead and put my own information in here. Charles Parker, my cell phone, 462-0669. Now this is this little SMS gateway. I don't know if anybody's familiar with gateways, but I am personally, my phone is a Sprint phone. So I would select Sprint. Now with that, the reason that I'm doing all that, I'm going to hit save, is that I can easily send from NWCOPRO a message to my phone. So I'm going to pretend that this guy is my employee, and I would go here and hit employee messages, hit a new message. It puts the date, the time, and then hello, Chuck, and send to Charles Parker. It pre-populates that with the subject, hello. I can also copy somebody if I wanted to, because essentially what this is through an email. So if I wanted to send an email to Kristen at Corone at the same time, I could type in her address there, and then I would hit send message. And now it says the message was sent. So now what's going to happen is my phone is going to get that message. And it's already there. Of course, you can't see that, but it is. So that's one little neat feature right there. So going back into the phone log, create a new record here. So we have 4, and again, we're picking this, picking on this person as though they had called again. Go to job information. Now I'm going to assign that to that employee that I am. And we know that it's a bat, but let's just say that maybe she called about a bear. So it changes the icon here. Whatever it is, you should be able to, easily distinguish what it is. Again, we'll just put bat. We're going to do a site visit evaluation. And so the fee is $125. So we're going to hit the call status at this point. If they want us to come out, we'll be waiting on our arrival. So now, as you remember, the call statuses were what we had filled out previously. So there's an option here to add one if you're, to do that. And I could do that from here. But So I'm not going to right now, but it's just an option. I'm going to hit select waiting on our arrival. We'll hit save and close. What I want you to see though before I hit save and close is, well, let's say the billing information. If the billing is the same as the job or the address of the job site, because that's what this is, you go here, you hit copy from, and it'll copy all that over to here. Also, this little lookup zip code thing, what this does is this actually hits the U.S. Post Office's database. So if you don't know it, and you click that, it fills it in for you. Now, what I was going to say here is when I hit save and close, what's going to happen is you're going to see some latitude and some longitude coordinates for this address appear here. When you save this record, it also geocodes it. So we'll save the record. And I made that little animation because when you are on a cell phone, if you do not have a good connection, you may be wondering what's happening. That at least tells me that something's happening. So all of these phone calls in here right now all show up on a map. The interesting thing about this is that you'll be able to tell where those calls are coming from, but even more so, you go back to that phone log, and you can hit search, and you could say city. So for Metairie, we hit search. So what this is going to do is show only my calls from Metairie. So that's the only one in there. Now, what happened was, you go in search, and you hit clear the search. So there's all those calls again. You can also search by open jobs, and note all of these here are open phone calls. And again, I just had the girl working for me just throw a bunch of calls in. So she actually didn't put in all of these cities. She didn't do the back end of. I asked her not to, so that I could do that while I was doing this for the webinar. If this phone call was a dead call, and I knew that it was basically dead, I would go back into here. Change that to no, and hit save and close. So now that record is going to be saved, and that phone call is going to be no. So what's going to happen is that's going to disappear from off of the screen when we decide. See how it says no right there. If we're searching just for the open jobs, that call will go away. And that's going to help eliminate a lot of clutter on in the future when you have a bunch of calls behind you. You don't necessarily need to see every single one of them. Also, if you're out in the field, you can pull this up real quick and look and say that, okay, I did have a call right over here. What was that call right there? It was a snake call, but where is it? Let's zoom in on it. If you mouse over that, it says Southport Hall. If you click it, it tells you the address. And if you go back to the phone log itself, that record is highlighted. So that will help you find the call when you have a bunch of them. Let's say you have like my personal ones. I have a few thousand in there. If I load them all up at the same time, there's blue icons everywhere. So you really want to be able to search by city and things like that, the date, maybe the species. In this case here, I see that we have a few squirrel calls. So if you go here, species type, so he only has armadillo. So we'd have to go back down to the species, and we'll hit search just to see. There's none. So there were no armadillo calls in there. So that species type is coming from the species type in here. Actually, that's not entirely true. I changed that, so my bad. This lookup is not looking up to that anymore. So, yeah, it's only lookup. I have to change that. So there's a little flaw. That's the beauty of beta. But normally, we'll be able to see all of that, or to search that. I can change that tonight. So going from the phone log into, what happens with this phone call afterwards. You want to turn that person into a customer and go to that job. So how do you create a customer? Let's give it a second to load. So in here there's two, and these are ones that I had done prior, had nothing to do with those phone calls, but what we're going to do is create a customer from a phone call. So you'll see there's things here that say related field reports and related invoices. As you develop and are importing more and more information, again, we'll start seeing how all of these things come together to work together. So we're going to create a new customer from the phone log. And you don't have to. You could just write in your own information, but obviously, you must have gotten a phone call from somebody. So what this is doing is pulling up your phone calls. We're going to pick one from this call right here. We'll hit select. And what that did is it filled in all of the information. The job site, there were contacts there, the billing information, and if there was any lead information, we would have put that together for you too. Now, so we're going to have that one customer, Jeremy, save and submit. We're just going to walk this guy through, maybe doing a little job for this guy right now. So he is a customer now, and let's say we want to set up a job for that guy to go out there on a certain date. So we go to our jobs list, and the jobs list has the list of jobs, and then there are also tasks for those individual jobs. The jobs also is basically hitting the same table or database table as the calendar itself. And so both of these things work hand in hand. There's actually several things here. You've got the calendar, multi-calendar, jobs list, and managed tasks. I'm going to show you how all of these work together. So your calendar, you could come to this day right here, and you could click it, and it would give you an option to create an event for that calendar. Just if you're familiar with Google Calendar, you might be interested to know that this little iCal export right here, if you click this button, it'll save any records that you want it to from the start date and end date. You hit OK, it'll save it as an iCal file, and if you go into Google Calendar, you can import it just with a clickable button. So basically, you can, if you're real happy with Google Calendar and you want to use your jobs list out of here, you can export it right into Google Calendar with a couple of clicks. So anyway, you could set up an event like this, and so the first thing you can have is an event picker. So you could pick an event from your phone log, from an invoice, a previous job, or from your customers. So we'll do one from the phone log. And what this did is it pulled up quickly all of the phone calls that we had there. And so we go to Jeremy there, and you notice that all of his information is filled in. There's the details for the job, the callback number, that type of thing. And then also, I want to say it's a site visit, and the calendar color is gray. I really like green. That green, dark green. And this here is a calendar status or a job status. This is for the people that really want to micromanage things. Somebody asked me to put this together like this, and I did it, but I'm not this in depth. But you could, on these jobs, set it up for as let's just say that this person was not interested and it's a junk call that canceled on you maybe, or you could say that it was an emergency job. So we hit submit. What they did, they put that thing in here, but now if you go into multi-calendar, Multi-calendar allows you to look at the calendars by status. So there's a little icon right here that comes in the side. You could say how many jobs that I have, how many jobs are actually emergencies. I'm going to pull that up, and it's only going to show that one. So that's how that breaks down. I don't see a lot of people using this, but it's there if you ever wanted to really. Once you have about 3 to 5 years of information in here, then this may be something you're really interested in. But in the beginning, I highly doubt it. So I'm going to close that. But again, you notice it's the same exact calendar. It's just presenting the information differently. And the same goes for the job list. Basically, if you notice, when we hit refresh, that there are now the calendar items are in this job list. So in this guy here, if it's just a single visit to that job, then you may not have additional tasks. But if you have additional tasks, you can add them here. So that let's say you know that you're going to go back in a week or 2 weeks to remove the snake traps. Let's say you're setting out snake traps. You would put pending, remove snake traps, and we're going to do this next week on the 26th, and we're going to do it at 4:51. So you could write down whatever you wanted there for notes for somebody, and then you could also, after the job's done, if you wanted to put notes there. Yeah, I know we're running short on time. Kristen's being very, very nice about it, Andrea is. So I guess I could stop right here and see if anybody has any questions. I know I covered a whole lot about how to use this. We didn't even get into where the field reports or where are my traps. So,
Charles,
yes.
Can you maybe share a little bit about how has this software changed the way that you do business?
Well, I'm going to answer your question and Eric Gray's, because Eric's asking about, do I have anything to upload pics of the job? Absolutely. So we set up a job here, and the next thing I was going to go into was field reports when you're out in the field. And this is where the pictures come in handy. And the Technician app makes it a little bit more user-friendly, but certainly I can do it from right here as well. I could take pictures, put them on a computer, and put them on this way, or we could do it through that, or there's even a mobile view that's here in the desktop view. So if you notice, these buttons stretch across. Let's say I have I'm out in the field. I'm going to make this window a little smaller, just to kind of show you how these things scale. So if you notice that it's going to scale to fit the window. So what we're going to do is create. We're going to hit new record. And if you notice that thing that was there, it said this is an existing record. That'll let you know that it is. This is a new record now, so to say all jobs. We're going to go to this Jeremy job. And what you're going to notice is that all that information is filled out for you from the job. If you left equipment on that job, you would select it here. So let's say we did put that trap there, and now we can add pictures of that particular job. So you would do this. That's going to pull up images for you to put, on that there. Let's just say we're going to put this image here. So there's that image. And so you can add another image right here and go down and do the same thing, click on it, write a description of what it is, a name, whatever you want to do, and then you would hit submit. So that's going to save that record. Now remember, it saved the record with that customer because that customer's information was chosen to be a part of that. So again, this is meant to scale on a mobile device, but you don't have to. We're on the desktop right now. So let's go back to customers and Jeremy here. Actually, let me get this load. I clicked a little too quickly, sorry.
But yeah, so the idea is that, you know, if we had an invoice, we would be able to click that. So what I meant to really click was the related field reports right now. So what that's going to show is that we have one field report with this guy, and we can go back into it. We know it was dated for that date, what pictures were there. So that piece of equipment now is on this particular job, and it was recorded at this address last. So now we have pictures of the job, time in and out of job site, and yes, I do believe I have Canadian addresses in there, Doug. I know they're different. I just can't remember how right now off the top of my head. Let me just touch on one other thing. Where on my traps, what we're going to see here is that I believe we only have that one piece of equipment, or we have the one piece of equipment. So what's going to happen is it's going to show that you know, where it was located at on the map. Now, the interesting thing about this piece of equipment is that you can move it around. So this is the last recorded address right there. And let's see, assigned coordinates. Hit save. Which, let's see. So that's going to put, that should show both of them now, I believe. If I'm not mistaken, it should be further out. Yeah, let's do it. Oh, that should refresh. I believe the refresh is going to refresh the map. Yeah, there we go. Okay, so they're showing that job at Southport Hall. You notice when I selected it, it pulled up that record. So that thing is selected right now. Let's say that we have several traps on the job. I'm just going to pretend for the sake of argument here that I'm going to zoom in on this level here. And we have that trap there, but let's say that this trap is not inside the building. Let's say that we set this trap actually over by the dumpster. So what we want to be able to do is to select that trap, and by clicking that, we're going to do, you can drag that over there. And so that's where that trap is going to be at now. So it's not going to be on that area anymore. So if you select it, you'll notice that the latitude and longitude coordinates have changed, which I don't remember what they were. But, anyway, so what will happen is you can have a bunch of mole traps out, and you'll be able to keep track of where they're at. So you send somebody else out on a job, you could print this screen for them, and they can see exactly where they're supposed to look. Are there any other questions?
So, Charles, can you talk about what you feel like is the best feature of NWCOPRO, or how it has changed the way that you do your business?
Well, first of all, it's helped me out with the pictures being kept with the job, because when I go back to the job, and this just happened to me where I went up into an attic and the traps were cleaned spotless by a mouse. He clearly licked all of the bait off of there. The trap was not set off. It was clean as a whistle, and the guy was doubting whether or not I had even baited the traps. Well, I was able to pull up that picture very quickly right there in front of him and say, no, this is a picture I took that day. It's saved with your information, and showed it to him. He's like, wow, look at that. So he knew that I had done it. I had that picture proof with me. I didn't have to go searching through folders in my phone, or scrolling through a million pictures. All I had to do was find the customer and then the picture. And then the other thing that's really helped me out a lot in is a lot of times when you get really busy through the year, you have jobs that if you remembered that there was a squirrel job that was so close to you that you could go by there and finish that thing up, pull the traps, but a lot of times we get so busy, and I know this from talking to a lot of guys, that you just forget to go back to that job for some time. And what happens is you can pull it up and you say, don't I have a job? I know I do. Where is that thing? What I used to do is go to my notebook and start thumbing through that or pulling up all my invoices, but now I can just look on the map and I say, oh yeah, it's right there, and especially if I'm sitting very close to that job already. Now again, this owner at owner.com, we only have 10 records in, but when you start getting 2 to 3 years of information in here, and you can filter out by month what your back calls are, what they really are, not what you think they are, where you're getting your squirrel calls from. This can help you with planning your advertising with Google AdWords, like what time of year you really want to hit on advertising for squirrels or advertising for whatever it may be. But you have real accurate information. So.
Okay, are there any other questions that anyone has? And if not, Charles, maybe you can just let them know how to subscribe to it, or if they wanted more information, do they just call you, send you an email?
Let me just say this. Let me go back to the regular WW site. Let me see, NWCOPRO. Because there really is a lot more to this. So if anybody, I'm available all the time, really. This is my little baby, and I've been trying to do the best I can with it. I believe it's really going to change the future of software for wildlife control. Even if this thing doesn't take off, I know it's going to have a big effect on it. But as far as you can, on the Contact Us page, there's my cell phone and my email, and that's a little quick usage map you might see. There's been a lot of interest in it, and I've been really happy with it. If you click this box right here, you can send me a text message very quickly.
Very good. Well, if there aren't any other questions, I'd like to thank first Charles for spending your time with us this evening. It really is great to see this very innovative approach to a business in this industry. And I wanted to thank everyone else that's been with us as well. It looks like maybe we have another question that had just come up. Can you pull a monthly report of animals caught at a site for a customer?
Yeah, the way that I've been doing that is not necessarily, reporting itself right now is not very strong in this, although it is definitely coming. The only thing that I have that's similar to a report right now is being able to invoice a customer and then send that customer an invoice through email out of here. And that basically, in the invoice itself, is really where you would get what you're saying, because this invoice is different than, again, like what you might see for QuickBooks, because QuickBooks, to really set it up for a nuisance wildlife company is pretty difficult. And that, again, that's why I built this. In Invoice Pro, what I've done is made it to where if we click a new invoice here, you see right here it says items and animals. What you do is you can put in every animal that you've caught. And so what happens is, you put in this thing here, that invoice is going to have all of that. So you could easily just, on their invoice, you could create an invoice like this. It's not necessarily a paid invoice, but more of a report. You put in how many animals it is in here and then email it to them. So yeah, you could do that. You could do that with this form right here. Anything else?
Okay, it looks like you've answered the question. So for more information, you can go to the NWCOPRO.com website, and Charles's contact information is there, and certainly you can reach out to me, and I'd be happy to forward it to you as well. So thanks again, Charles, and thanks to everyone else who took time out of your evening and shared it with us. So we'll sign off now.